Hi, I'm Ryan.
Hi, I'm Abdulaziz Yaslam.
And I'm Malia, and we're gonna play poker, but with dice.
I'll be talking about the GUI and how everything connects. So we first start by displaying a help message that gives you instructions on how to play the game. Once you hit OK, it will run through an intentionally slow loop to display a smooth animation. We then initialize all of our variables and functions that we'll be using later on. Once we get to this part, which is associated with this button, once it is pressed, it will play a sound, enables this button, generates a new set of dice, and displays the appropriate images. Then comes player 2's turn. Uh, his function does pretty much the same thing. It rolls the dice, enables a different button, and displays the appropriate images. Now that it is player 1's turn again, he gets the chance to re-roll some specific dice. So let's say we want to re-roll this one. We just check the box, and then we press the button, and it will generate a new array and then checks the index of which dice to switch out. Player 2 does pretty much the same thing when he gets his turn again. He can select which dice to reroll, presses the button, and it happens. Now it is player 1's turn again, but let's say we don't want to reroll any of the dice, so we can just press the button to end the turn. And finally, it is player 2's final turn, and seeing how he doesn't have a chance anymore, we'll just reroll anything, I guess. Press the button, and it'll run through this code, where it'll score the game, decide the winner, and displays the appropriate message. And we can see that player 1 wins. We can then press this button to restart the game.
So there are ranks of the hands you can roll when you play this game. If you get none of the hands, that means there's mismatched dice and they form no sequence longer than 4. If you get a pair, that means 2 dice have the same value. And if you get 2 pairs, then you have 4 pairs of dice with the same value. And then for a 3 of a kind, 3 dice have to have the same value. And a 5 high straight is when the dice values go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. 6 high straight is when the dice go from 2 to 6. Full house is a pair and a 3 of a kind. And a 4 of a kind is 4 dice the same value. And 5 of a kind is all 5 dice of the same value. Now these are ranked from lowest to highest. So if you get a 5 of a kind, then you win. And if ends up your partner you're playing with both get a 5 of a kind, then it depends on the number you roll. So 6 is higher than a 5, and a 5 is higher than a 4, etc.
To keep track of the scoring, we created a function called scoring that will output score 1 and score 2. We used the global variables hand1 and hand2, and then we sorted these in descending order. We also created variables for player 1 and player 2 called hand1 6s, 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. This is so that at the end we can create an array that will store the number of times a player rolled a 6, a 5, and a 4, and so on. To keep track of the number of times they rolled a number like 6, we used a for loop and an if statement, and we did the same for 5 through 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we did this for both players. At the end, we created an array called hand1 dice and hand2 dice that store the number of times they rolled a 6, a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. After that, we created variables for the specific types of rolls, such as a pair. And to do that, we said that sum of hand1 dice 2 equals 2. This is so that if, for example, they rolled a pair of 6s, the indexing value will be 2. And if they didn't roll any 5s, it'll be a 0, and if they rolled 2 4s, then it'll be a 2. So then it'll use the logical indexing, and it'll make it so that it's 1 0 1. It'll add those together, and we'll know that there's 2 pairs. We used a similar process for 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, and 5 of a kind. From there, we used if statements to see if the player had 1 pair, 2 pairs, 1 3 of a kind, and then we also have special kinds of rolls called 5 high straight, which is when they have a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1, or a 6 high straight, which is a 6, a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2. And then we also have a full house, which would be 1 pair and a 3 of a kind. We did the same process for player 2, and then if their scores happen to be equal, we now need to look at the specific roll. So if score 1 is equal to score 2, and then we use an if statement and else if statements to find the specifics of the roll. So if player 1 had a pair of 6s and player 2 also had a pair of 5s, initially their scores would be the same, but then by running this code we'll know that the 6s are greater than 5s, so player 2 would win.
For sound, every time that the 5 dice are rolled, there is a sound of dice rolling that is played. There's one sound, and there's a second sound, and every time that player 1 or player 2 rolls their dice, a separate sound is played. Also for animations, each dice displays a number, and when those dice are re-rolled, those numbers will change. At the end, an image is displayed depending on who wins, and it's an image of a trophy. Oriented programming, we create an object for the 5 dice, which is used in dice game variable, and it is initialized when the game first runs. As you can see, there's 10 different dice since each player 1 and player 2, rolls 5 dice each turn. And then here in dice game is where the variable is initialized when the game runs.
One of the challenges we had is finding a way to switch between players and to switch between the hands they rolled, which is why we copied and pasted the code to count the number of 6s and 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, 1s for each player. And all we did was change the variable name to hand 2. It's the same code as above, but for player 1 it's hand 1. Similarly, when it came to determining if they had a pair, a 3 of a kind, or a 4 of a kind, we copied and pasted the same code, but we named it pair 2, 3 of a kind 2, 4 of a kind 2, 5 of a kind 2. And we were also unable to reach our goal of implementing a betting system.